So we're going to start now with our first presentation from Simone at Stiftung Lesen in Germany. Simone?
Thank you very much, and hello to you all. Some of you I remember from conferences, from personal exchange, Ehmig, for example, or others. I remember well when we met personally some months ago. So I am, thank you very much for inviting me to talk about the evaluation of the German Bookstart program, which is not done by Stiftung Lesen itself, but it is an external evaluation. I will come back to that later. So I will share my screen with you. I hope you can look at it. Can anyone give me a... Yeah, you can see it? Perfect. So, what are we talking about? What is evaluated? What is the program? If we are talking about the evaluation of Lesestart, Lesestart means reading start. Here we focus on reading and look at books as a means to get children motivated and parents reading aloud and so on. If we look at that program, it is important to know that it is not one program, but it is a whole program family. And that there are parts of this family that are older and some who have just started or are running at the moment. So the core program is Lesestart, 3 milestones for reading. It is a program that ran from 2011 to 2019 with the target group of children aged 1 and 3, and again when they started school. And we concentrate with this program on disadvantaged families. That means we try to reach at least 50% of all families with children aged 1, aged 3, and beginning with school nationwide. This program is finished, and last year in autumn we began with a program directly following from that, but a little bit moderated, and that is Lesestart, Reading Start 1, 2, 3. These 3 figures stand for the age of the children. Here we focus on children aged 1, 2, and 3. So it is more dense what we do to contact them and to motivate parents to read aloud, again in disadvantaged families. The program works with book gifts. We all are working with book gifting, and these book gifts are given to parents with children aged 1 at pediatricians' offices, aged 3 at libraries, and the 3rd milestone has taken place in primary schools in the 1st grade classes. There is a parallel program that we developed to start in 2015, and that is a program also dealing with book gifts, targeting refugee children. In 2015, there have been many families coming to Germany with children aged 1 to 6, and this Lesestart, Reading Start for refugee children addressed these families in the arrival centers, where they also got this little bag with a book gift and material to be used by people in the arrival centers, by volunteers and professionals there. Also, this program has ended last year, and there is a next version of it working in the same way, started 2019. Systematic evaluation is only done, only in quote marks, is only done for the core programs, the Lesestart 3 milestones program, and again a second setup for evaluation started with the new Lesestart 1, 2, 3 program. This the evaluation of the core program, of the 3 milestones program, is finished. We are waiting for the final documents. We are not allowed to publish data from that by legal reasons, but I can summarize some of the results, and I can show you how these evaluations took place and how they were done and what are the limitations of these of this evaluation. So now we concentrate on the core program, the 3 milestones program, targeting families with children in the age of 1 year, of 3 years, and children getting a 3rd book gift when they started schools, and they got that in the schools. So, what is the size of the program? Lesestart is a nationwide program. We worked together with more than 5,000 pediatricians, resident pediatricians in Germany. This is about 85% of all working nationwide. We have been working with more than 5,000 public libraries, many of them located in places where we have disadvantaged families, socially and educationally disadvantaged families. In these regions, we also concentrated these multipliers. And finally, for the 3rd milestone, we worked together with almost all primary schools in Germany, and that is close to 20,000 roundabout. So a huge program nationwide, aiming to reach at least 50% of all families with children aged 1, and then again when the children were 3, and again when they started school. So, how did this evaluation work? Who did it and how did it work? There were 2 separate studies financed by the ministry, which also financed the program. And they divided the steps of the evaluation because of public procurement law. They haven't been allowed to finance it during the whole time the program ran. So they divided it into 2 studies in which 2 separate evaluation teams worked together. The first study, evaluation part, concerns the milestone 1, the pediatricians giving books and bags to families, and milestone 2, the libraries, where the families went in and got the books and the material. Here, the evaluation was done by an institute located in Berlin, specialized in evaluation and in consulting, and they worked together with two experts from academic research, one specialized in the field of reading acquisition, a colleague from the University of Cologne, and the second expert was specialized in psychology of early childhood. He came from the University of Hamburg, from the clinic that is associated to the University of Hamburg. And this evaluation team worked together or established an advisory board just for the evaluation, consisting of 4 experts representing education studies, research in reading aloud, and early literacy. So this was the first part. The third milestone, the book gifting at primary schools for first graders, the same children that were given the books here and here. This milestone has been evaluated by a different institute, also specialized in evaluation and in consulting. They do a lot of research on social questions, located in another city in Germany. And they worked together with a research group working in the field of early childhood. It's been a team of, I don't know, 5 or 6 experts. They are all affiliated to university institutes, but they built a team, this Bielefelder Institute, an institute also located in Bielefeld. This is why it is called like that. So what is a little bit funny, I just mentioned that to show you limitations or also questions you can ask concerning how these teams are built. It is funny that for the first milestones, when children are 1 year old and 3 years old, there are experts involved dealing with reading competencies, with reading acquisitions, which is important when children go to school later on. And to evaluate this milestone, which is clearly related to the step when children go into school and when they learn to read, here a research group is involved who is an expert for early childhood. So this is just a funny constellation. Also, we in the German Reading Foundation, we, independent from them, but connected to them, we established several advisory boards ourselves to involve experts in the development of material, for example, in the selection of books. We chose as the books to be given to the children. Also, we had advisory boards to organize the distribution processes, advisory boards by librarians, including ministries who are responsible for schools and so on. So there was a continuous exchange between the Reading Foundation, that is ourselves, with experts telling us and giving us advice how to do it best to reach the target groups and to get to improve our material and to have criteria to select and so on. So we came from different perspectives to make the program as good as possible. So how did this evaluation work? I just summarized that. there are so many details. I wouldn't end if I would have an hour or two to describe all that. I just summarize it and I generalize it. So what did these evaluation teams do? First of all, this first evaluation team established panel surveys, mostly done by telephone, panel surveys among the multipliers. That was a survey among pediatricians who participated in the program and who did not participate in the program. We didn't have them all. I told you we had about 85%, but not more. And they also contacted pediatricians who did not participate because they were good to establish a control group also of parents. And this is the second part, that they established a panel to do surveys among parents. And these parents were recruited by the medical officers of pediatricians who participated in the program. That was, if you translate that to an experimental design, they are the experimental group. They were given the book start packages, and they also had a group of parents who were recruited in medical offices of pediatricians who did not participate in the program, because these parents have not been given the gift package. They are the control group. It's parents without this, this book gift. They also established a panel surveys among libraries, which were the multipliers to give the gifts to children aged 3 and their parents. And also here we had libraries who participated and who did not participate. When the program came into the schools, the second evaluation team did surveys among the schools, among the directors of the schools, for example, about the logistic, how the distribution worked, if the packages reached the school, if the system we established together with the schools and the ministries, if that worked, and what they saw in the classes, how they evaluated the books and so on. And here they created, because we had all primary schools, it was not so easy to get a control group, because almost every school was involved in the program. So they created a control group, or they had a measurement before the program started in the schools. So they had the situation, the German Book Start program, and 1 year later they again had surveys in the schools when the program had started, and they did it several times. As I remember, it was not a panel but a trend, but I'm not sure at the moment. And finally, in this concerning this milestone in primary schools, these experts established surveys among parents whose children went into the first grades, the first classes in the primary schools. Also here they used this logic to ask parents of children who began school 1 year before the program started as a control group and during the program. This whole system is quite logic, and we have a lot of perspectives represented there. But there are also restrictions. There are also implications that limits the quality of the data, also for those who worked with them. Here we always have to consider that the patient's structure, the structure of parents you reach by pediatricians' offices is different in offices who participate compared to those who do not participate. It's the structure in the regions may differ. So maybe if you compare them, you have not the same conditions. And the differences you find might not be differences initiated by the program, but due to the different structure where these pediatricians work, for example. Here we also see these parents who were involved in the panel surveys. They were recruited in the medical offices, giving them a short questionnaire, paper, pencil, in the offices. And that means that parents who were not able to read and to write well often have refused to take part in these surveys, even though these surveys later on have been by telephone. But to fill in this short questionnaire, they were forced to read and to write a little bit. So in these, and you see that also in the structure of the data, that in these surveys, and that is true for all of them, involving parents, that struggling readers are underrepresented. They are represented, but not as much as the program itself aims at. The program aims at struggling, at parents who are struggling readers, parents who are disadvantaged, parents with a low educational level, and so on. So that is a structural problem in this methodology. And that is also true here, where parents were involved in surveys, written surveys, also paper, pencil, with many, many pages. I think these questionnaires had 10 pages or more, very much text, and very much German text. So not only the struggling readers and writers have been underrepresented here, but also parents who were not very well able to speak German and to understand German. And that also is a disadvantage to use this methodology. We have to live with that, but we have to know about this kind of restriction, which is due to the paper pencil method, and also by the distribution method, because the questionnaires were given to the parents by the pupils, and the pupils took the questionnaire back to the classroom where it was where they were collected and sent back to the institute. So many, many steps which were not very, which was not a very good condition to be successful here. But we have results that we are able to interpret, and in my last part I just want to summarize some of them to show what these evaluation steps gave us to learn about our Lesestart program. Well, I begin with the results for the first milestone, the book gifts for families with 1-year-old children. What did we see? We saw, or the evaluation gave us as a really interesting results that more than 80%, I think it was around about 85% of all pediatricians practicing in Germany participated in the program. And that shows how much acceptance this program found among these professionals, who usually they ask parents if their children are able to speak well or how many words they know. But up to our program, they have not been experts in reading promotion or in promotion of reading aloud and of things like that. It's a very, very, for us, it is an important success that we have them on board. We have seen if they hand the package over to the parents, their role, the role they play in the eyes of the parents is very important for the success or the impact on parents. Parents who were given the package individually and to whom the doctor or an assistant talked quite intensely, explained what this is and how to use it, they later on were found to be much more often interested in the topic, in the material. They looked at the material much more intensely than parents who were just given the package when they left the medical center without any comment. So talking to parents and talking in a specific role. So the doctor, he is an authority, but he's also a person I trust in. It's a question of trustfulness of the situation, and also of intimacy, that I'm alone with this person. He is concentrated on me as a mother or a father, giving me that and telling me why it is important to use it. So what did the parents do with the package? Those who got it, they were most interested in the book and in this practical guide giving tips how to read aloud, why it is important, how to practice it in the family, in daily life of a family. 80% of the parents had looked at this guide, and almost everyone remembered the book. The book is the core element of the package, and it catched most of the interest of the parents. And they did not only look at or into the guide that was in the package, but every second mother or father who had used it had realized something at home of the practical tips. So they also acted. They did not only look at it or read it, but they also practically used the information they got. So what we see in this evaluation is that the material had a really significant impact on the knowledge of parents, the knowledge that reading aloud is important, and the knowledge how to practice it in a family context. And parents were also asked to evaluate the package as good, very good, not so good, bad. And we have a very high level of evaluation as very good or good by 84% of the parents. They like it. They like what they get. Maybe also because it is a gift and it is given by someone whom I do not expect usually to give me something like that. So, second milestone, families with 3-year-old children Also here, we have a high participation rate of the libraries. 5,000 public libraries participated in the program, many of them in the regions where we know that a lot of disadvantaged families are living. Most of these, the difference between the first and the second milestone is that in the first step, families have been at the medical center anyway. They went there to have an examination of the children, and they got the package by unexpectedly. Here, the parents and the families have been asked to go to the library to get the package. So it is a different logic we have to have in mind. Most of the parents who went into the libraries, they received the package at the front desk, where everyone goes to take or return books to borrow. But what we have seen is the most important problem is not to get the package there, but to go to a library. Because especially for those who are disadvantaged by education, by social, by money or something like that, for them, libraries are and stay an obstacle. It is not normal to go into a library because I'm not reading, what should I do there? And that has been a reason for many libraries they felt forced to find ways to actively address the families and to draw them into their rooms, to bring them in, and that was a really good that was a good step that libraries realized. I cannot sit and wait until they come, but I have to do something. And that is one of the most important impacts this program had on libraries, that they found ways to reach families outside, for example, in cooperating with kindergartens or to establish cooperations with other partners. They organized events to attract families, many families. They had summer events in the summer or what else to bring many families at one time into their rooms and to hand over the material to them. And we know that the number of events libraries are providing has increased by 1/3 by this program. And that is really a good impact and a good success of the program. And many of them, most of them, invested to improve what they can offer to families. They invested in books, in digital media, in technical equipment, and so on. Also to realize reading aloud events to bring not the parents in and the families not only one time, but several times, to come back and to listen to volunteers reading to the children. And by all these activities, many libraries were successful to attract new customers, especially parents with children in this age 3 to 4 years old. And we reached about 57,000 families who had not used libraries before. And that is a good success. The parents who got the package also here rated as good or very good, and many of them have intensely used the material, all of them at least briefly, almost all of them. And again, here the most attractive element of the package has been the book, followed again by the guide, which has been read by every second mother or father. So finally, the book gift for the year 1 pupils, for pupils who just started to go to school. Here we did not select children who are disadvantaged because we didn't want to have a stigma. The one gets it, the neighbor not. But we reached all children who started school at that time. And what we see is that the impact of this third intervention, which is 3 years later than in the libraries, may be best described as some kind of a reinforcement of these impulses that we set in the phases 1 and 2, but it's 3 years later. So it's a quite long time between the first and the second milestone, and it is a third logic, giving it to the children by the schools, but as a gift for the families. So we have a huge variety how schools dealt with this logic and how they handed over the book, when they did it, and so on. We have seen the evaluation has shown that families who had received finally all 3 gift packages, that these families showed a significantly higher awareness of reading aloud being important for their children than families who had not received all the 3 packages. We have every possibility, and we have families who haven't received anything. We have families who have received 1 or 2 or all 3 of them. Everyone should have got this last and third one, this third package. The more packages they have got, the more activity they showed in reading aloud. And they were also significantly more motivated to stimulate their children, to encourage them to learn new words and expressions. And that has especially been true for parents who had intensely used the guide, who had informed themselves by this booklet and learned about the variety of things they could do together with their children. Yeah, and this long-term panel surveys of parents, there has been a huge panel mortality in the end, but what we can see is that the program also had an impact on children's language competency and fluency, on the amount of words they were able to use, on grammar and whatever. But behind that, partly, we also have an influence of parents' educational level. And that is something we have as a constant influence. To summarize that, the evaluation you have seen a little bit complicated with these 2 evaluation teams, but from the beginning on, the evaluation was meant as a formative evaluation. That means that during the whole process, we always improved the program dependent from the evaluation results. We have seen, or the evaluation confirmed, that the program definitely has an impact, and it has a positive impact on parents' awareness of reading aloud being an important, something important for the children, but also their awareness of their individual responsibility to do something, not only to say, yeah, it's important that someone reads to my child, but I myself am responsible. It has an impact on their knowledge, how to practice reading aloud. It has an impact on their behavior. They definitely did it because of the program. More parents read aloud than without Lesestart, and many of them really benefit from the practical advice they get by the material. But that is only one part, one side of the medal. What is maybe as important as the impact on parents is the impact on institutions, on multipliers, on networking. And we have seen that by a program that is so much going into the structures in a country and that is nationwide organized, there we see that there is a huge impact on institutions, and not only on those who are doing education, but also on professionals, for example, in the healthcare system, on multipliers, and they really gain responsibility. They see they are responsible for language and reading promotion. They become active, they cooperate, and they understand that it is more effective to build up networks, to work in networks, which contribute to improve children's access to reading. And we have seen that there are two main factors that in the future may improve the impact of the program on parents. And that is first something I've already mentioned. It is the trustfulness and the authority of the multiplier, especially the pediatrists, who are looked at as an authority by the parents. They trust him and his personnel. But also something that really has not been ideal in this old version of the program, and that are the intervals between the stimuli. We had 1 year, 3 years, and school start, which is usually when children are 6 years old. So we had a period of 2 or 3 years between the stimuli, between the book gifts, and that was too long. We lose people. They forget about the program and about the books and about the importance of reading aloud, not only when children are 1 year old. And that is the reason why we modified Lesestart and why now we have this Reading Start 1, 2, 3 project, in which one birth cohort gets the first book gift when children are 1 year old at the pediatrician's offices. When they are 2 years old, they get the second package, again by the pediatrician. And when they are 3 years old, they get the third package in the libraries. So we have a more dense, more intense stimulus 3 times. Yeah, thank you for the attention.
Thank you very much, Simone. It was very encouraging to see the positive impact that your program is having. And I was really impressed that 80% of the pediatricians were participating. There was also something I found interesting. It kind of related to a question that Izumi had in our last meeting, which was looking at the difference between when the bag is delivered with discussion and some guidance and when it's not. And certainly your research seems to indicate that there is a stronger impact when you have that personal connection. And also I was very impressed with the way that the libraries through this are reaching out more and reaching more people and bringing them in. So that was really wonderful as well. I think we'll take a couple of quick questions before we go on to Brian. I know that Dan has a question regarding parents and their recollection of the book and the tips. Dan?
Yeah, maybe more in general for the evaluation. you were asking the parents if they were more aware and if they had knowledge and if their behavior had changed. I was wondering, did you only ask them if this was the case, or did you actually test if this was the case? So do you know if they were actually changing their behavior? Did you test that, or did they say they were changing their behavior, just as an example?
Yeah. If I would have done the evaluation, maybe I would have looked at the families, but the evaluation teams, they asked them. It was just self-reported.
So, self-reported, yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
But there was a tiny little additional study in the second evaluation. The second evaluation team did. They had some kind of a how's that called? They had a small group of parents. I'm looking for a word. I don't find it. They looked into the families reading aloud different times, and they really have seen, and you can see it if you look at these films. They filmed the situations that when parents have read these guides, this guiding information, they really change the way they read aloud. And so you really see that there is a difference, but only among parents whom you force to read aloud to their children. Yeah, they could not see if they read aloud more often compared to the time before they got the package.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for an excellent presentation.
We also have a question from Ruth Ann regarding the number of children who took part in the evaluation activities. Ruth Ann?
Yes, Simone, thank you. That was really interesting, particularly because here at Book Trust UK, we are thinking about new evaluation approaches. So yeah, I think, Carol, you just summarised my question nicely. I just really wanted to understand a little bit more about the scale of the evaluation activities that you did with families. So firstly, the work that you did in the schools, like roughly how many families were involved in that? And then also in the longer term panel survey work, like roughly how many families were involved there?
Well, maybe we should have a contact after this session to exchange the details of the evaluation. As far as I remember, these evaluation teams, they recruited several hundreds of parents, for example. But the question is, what is in the different groups? What is how many people do we have left in the third wave of the panel among the disadvantaged families, for example? And I just mentioned there was a high panel mortality, and it was over. It was there have been more parents lost who were struggling readers, who were disadvantaged parents, and so on. So in the end, in these small groups, you have more or less 20 or 30 parents left. But maybe if you are interested in these in the figures, we might get into contact about that afterwards.
That would be great. Thank you. That's just a really helpful steer. I just wondered roughly how many. That's really helpful. Thank you, Simone.
Yeah.
Thank you. We do have a couple of more questions, but perhaps we could hold those until the very end.
Yes, I had a question for Simone. First of all, I want to thank you both for inspirational presentations. Thank you. Actually, I was looking for the chat because I thought, what was my question again? I think, oh yeah, I wanted to know the percentage of the families you reach in the library, Simone, because you said something about 86% of the parents who come to the library, but what's the percentage of the families you reach? Can you say something about that?
Not really at the moment. I don't have the figure present at the moment. I don't know if Sabine Honewitz,
Because you said it was very
No,
hard.
sorry.
No.
It's very hard for libraries to reach families. It's more harder than for, of course, healthcare centers. Yeah. So that's why I was wondering.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sabine?
Yeah, I can't say something of some numbers of families who go there. I have to, for this, I have to have a look at the evaluation. But we can do this and we can send it later per email in the next days. But indeed, it's very difficult for the libraries to reach these families who are our main families we want to reach, the disabled families in reading aloud. This is very difficult because they are not used to go to libraries. So this is always, it's a circle, and I think it's always the same. When you're used to go there, it's easier to get them. But the evaluation shows that they get some of these people, but I can't say something about the numbers.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I haven't the figures present at the moment too. In your question, you also ask how we define disadvantaged families. This is a question I would like to answer to. For us, disadvantaged means that these families do not have a good access to reading. And that means mostly they have a low educational level. They have a low income, and mostly, and because of that, they are in a disadvantaged social situation. Usually, these are the main indicators, of very often related to a migrant background.
Okay.
Because they also have difficulties with the German language.
Thank you.
And Dayton, did you want to ask your question, Simone?
Yeah, Sabine already answered it, that it was that you supported them with online offers. So thank you for that.